Welcome to the Scale the Good podcast. This is another episode in the Purpose Pivot series. My name is Kamil, and I am the program associate for Road to Region, which is a new accelerator that we have going on. And I've been here for a year. This is the longest I've been in a job. And this is Thushan.
Hi guys, I'm Thushan and I'm the program manager with alongside Kamil for Road to Region, and I've also been the program manager for the climate adaptation program and the LIL garage program. So yeah, are you ready to kick it off? So so let's. So talk about starting point of your career and thought process, the priorities, and the general line you put into. So talking about my career, I was not the most, how do I say, studious and like the career-driven kid even throughout school, because I had like a whole studious uh, phase till about grade 7, and it just flew off the window. Probably the folks I met, I blame them. But yeah, right after O levels, I, to be very honest, I was just generally good with computers, right? And my parents and the relatives, they had like generally fixated on, okay, he's good with computers, so he's gonna do IT. And I was doing IT even for O levels. I did IT, but the thing was, even though I was relatively decent with IT and programming and all of that, I was never really enjoying it. But so this flew through, right? Right after O levels, my parents were pushing me to do my degree, right? Or start off my degree with the foundation instead of going for A levels. So that's exactly what I did, because I was, like I said, I had, to be honest, that 5 years I had not planned. Even reflecting, I don't think I missed out, because I was very spontaneous. I was like absorbing a lot right after school. Because during school and all, I grew up in a very close-knit family, and like I was exposed to the general society in a very minute way. But O-level year, I sort of grew out of my shell, and like I was like starting to explore. And then when this opportunity came out, I started my degree at ANC. So it was actually quite exciting, because I got a new degree of freedom from away from home. So I started the first year. I went nuts, right? And I was absolutely crazy, and like the easiest foundation subjects, I started screwing around too much, and like it started reflecting on my academic, like progress, and like the GPAs and all started like getting impacted on that. So then what I did was what sort of gave me a sense of reality, because I was not aware. I was very childish, very immature, and not grasping the reality of things. So this was my parents. They were the ones who were like supporting me to study. I was not really checking through like how expensive the courses were. They were just like, I hear the numbers, but I was not really processing it. And then my family was going through some financial rough times. So, and then like it becomes apparent when you go home. It's not the same energy. They're stressed out, and that they're strained out because of your degree. Then I started taking it seriously, right? That actually, while doing that, this is the starting point of my career. I started talking to my brother-in-law, who was already doing some freelance stuff, and he sent me a bunch of YouTube videos to learn about graphic designing and web designing. And this was very like the early days when WordPress came out. So I started fooling around with WordPress and started getting some web designing gigs, and I got some freelance clients, foreign ones from US. So I started getting a decent amount of money. So I started helping my parents to like pay for my college. The first 2 years I was actually helping them out, which felt great. That sort of like became a driving factor to take things seriously more than like I was like way too small. Exactly, taking the weight off them felt so nice, and like the financial freedom, how good it feels. That's when I first got the taste of it. But still, the biggest thing was for me, I was very spontaneous. I think, I don't know whether is there something called too spontaneous. I Even after college, I had not like, planned my next 5 years. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and like I see people like immediate friends right after college. They're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, then start my masters. I'm with a degree. I'm like, okay, okay, cool. And I started looking around, and I bumped into an ad on LinkedIn for job on at Arthur C. Clarke Center. I'm a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke, so that was like, I was like, okay, cool, and I applied for it. And they were generally working with. I wanted to sort of specialize on ERPs, so they were trying to build an in-house ERP back then, and so I plugged into that, and I got a job as an assistant engineer, because it's a engineering entity. Most of the positions go by engineering focused like position, right? So I went there and started. That was like from my freelancing. That was my first actual job. Like, I got contracted, and yeah, so I started as an assistant engineer at the IT department of Arthur C. Clarke Center. I'm very glad, because that's where I got to learn, like, how, like, it's it's not too corporate either. It's more like a research institute. So you had like your freedom. It was not like a very set, like, 8 to 5 kind of ordeal. Like it's very flexible when it comes to timings, and like the work you get is very vivid. But the thing was, the what bothered me there was the irrelevant, like, so like, the entire reason they started to work for an internal in-house built ERP was they were trying to get all of these government entities to be paperless. So they had like a management system they were trying to transform to an ERP system, right? So while this was going and we were working with that, we then realized how inefficient the whole government sector is because of the system they're so used to. They don't want to budge out of it. They just want that, like, even the paper trail, they just want it as a physical file that on their desk. If it's like directed to your email, and there's like a whole entire process, like very easy. They just have to log in, they can see where the pending. They're still stuck in the whole thing. They want to file stuff, and like, and the worst part is the filing is horrendous. There's no system to it. You go and try to check for like a file that was 3 years early, and there's not going to be any luck.
It's just a bunch of paper.
It's just a bunch of, yeah. That's what they're hoarders. That's the thing. So we tried really hard, like, because most of the upper management were relatively older. So it was a bit tough to, like, get them to adapt. It was efficient, but they sort of felt like, because I think it was our fault as well, because there should be some sort of induction to technology when it comes to older generation, right? Yeah, because so they're in places of power. So they, like, if they go to a system that they're not aware, they're not familiar with, they feel like they're losing the reins. So we found a lot of resistance. I did learn a lot about programming, and a lot, like, how like these systems function while I was there. But the execution also, I learned how hard it was to execute something like that while I was working there, because there was so much of resistance, especially when it comes to, the leave management systems. Oh my God, because now everything is getting tallied in real time, right? So people were very uneasy, because, like, they have to check. They get, like, because usually it was the book they sign off, and like they don't even keep their fingers. Now it's all like there's no book. They have to keep their fingers. So there's all sorts of excuses. I didn't recognize my finger, and like nothing goes, like it takes a picture of your face as well. So people were used to, like, sort of undercutting the system. Now, like, the system's getting a bit strict, so there was resistance on that side as well, the disciplinary aspect. But it was fun though. So even though I was doing all of that and I was actually learning a lot, I still didn't enjoy, like, satisfaction of getting something done was already, like, it was always there, but like it just didn't feel right. Yeah, and it became very routinal, which sets me off. I hate when life becomes routinal, right? like I don't want to like skip the timeline. Even now, like this year, like the last 2 years, I had to go through a lot of changes, new job, and like I got married recently, so it's a bunch of changes. And now the biggest worry is like up to now everything has been very dynamic. Obviously, as you grow older, the routinal stuff tends to become like very easy to fall into a routine that repeats. I have no idea how I'm gonna react, so I'm just gonna prepare me.
Not necessarily.
You have to deal with it. Yeah, you can still stay dynamic. That's why I'm trying to push, like, you know. So when it became routine and it was not a routine I enjoyed, I started, like, you know, looking around what can I do to, like, you know, jump out of this. Then I started hiking, which sort of like was like my, you know, zen place when things became too routine. I used to go on a hike for no phones, no nothing. I just hop on a train and go somewhere.
Like from the 9 to 5.
Yeah. To contrast, like I just don't answer the phone or anything. So then I wanted to just, I didn't feel this was right for me or I was enjoying this. So this time my friend was applying for Airways, right? For there was a closed day in Sri Lanka. They were hiring folks, so he wanted help with the application. So I was filling it out to him, and he started talking about the traveling and all of that, and the perks, right? Even the money and all of that. The money was not a big factor, but the traveling, the opportunity to travel so many destinations, that was the selling point, right? I was like, maybe I'll also apply and see, and I actually got through. That was like a complete, like, the funniest part was like this was even on my CV. You like the okay programming, event management, like stuff like that, and all of a sudden cabin crew, like a complete different area. So I applied for the cabin crew in Airways, and I left Arthur C. Clarke to join Airways cabin crew, right? And I was there from December 20. Which year did Corona come? 2021? 2020. So then 19. So 19 December. No, November. November I went to and started my training and all of that, and finished my training, and went on the observation flight and all. Right after I come back, it's all chaos, right? Like everything's going down on lockdown. I'm also worried about my parents, like, cause like I knew if something happened, there was no way I can go back to Sri Lanka either, which bothered me really bad. Just the feeling of being locked out of your home country, and like most of your family is there, and every your friends and loved ones are there. So that is that is actually one of the key points where I started, reflecting on the things my country has to offer, like how fond I was of the country, because I felt very locked out. Then I started like being, like, like I started having gratitude for the things I was taking for granted, right? Like every single thing, from the food to the air to the birds. Like I went so like I used to watch all of my YouTube history was these Sri Lankan vloggers. I was just constantly living off that. That's what I was like, okay, I need to go, I need to go, I need to go. Because the funny thing was, I was anyways homesick when I first went to. This was the first time I been away from my family as well, properly. So when I was there, I dealt with my family, homesickness and all of that. And the moment I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go through this stuff happened and lockdown, then I reverted back. I sort of relapsed back. So when I came to Sri Lanka, for starters, I wanted to start something of my own, because I felt that just to do stuff I enjoy, there's supposed to be some sort of like financial freedom. And the thing is, if it's another company that you're working for, generally you never know, regardless of what it is, that job safety that can go just like that, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start something on my own. And I had another good friend of mine who was working at Maharaja Group as well. I got along with him, and we were like, okay, well, let's start a design agency, because I've been working with them with my freelancing gig. So I had like a decent client pool. So I started my agency and started working with them. And during COVID and lockdown, the digital space was the most attractive thing, right? The brick and mortar system was just falling, so they had to go digital. So I had so many opportunities to like, work with so many newer companies. So it was fun and like things were moving. But then Corona times was actually good for a digital agency. It was like open season, right? And after that, the entire economical collapse and all of that happened, which was hard, right? Because I was completely relying on my freelance gigs. I had no other job. I was just working back to back, especially with the foreign clients and all. And when you started having those 12-hour power cuts, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like it was really tough for me to maintain the clientele because we were all like this. It's very competitive on that space. Like the moment you slip up, there's somebody gonna take your place. So unless you do something like extraordinary, that's what I was thriving for. But still, but yeah, I started getting a bit pushed and like strained on that end, and decided, okay, while I'm doing this, I need a link to like have some sort of steady cash flow to like I have responsibilities to maintain. So then I started looking for a job again, and that's how I started working on my previous employer as a social media manager, because I had social media experience with my freelance stuff. That is where I got exposed to the corporate culture, which I was not a big fan of. Yes, just like the cutthroat nature of things when it becomes too corporate-y, it just was like that was not fun. But I still like mustered through. Like there was so much of opportunities, and like that was completely me trying to like sort out like a steady income, right? I did not see sole purpose for it. There was no greater satisfaction or greater drive that was pushing me. And then the situation of the country became even worse. And like one other reason, I actually was looking for a steady income because my wedding was coming up as well. So I had to do that. And during right when it was closing to the wedding, that was the worst time of our country's economy that year. Like it just everything fell apart. There was no fuel, nothing as well. And then like I was I was part of the entire protest wave that went throughout the country, and that was I was not supporting any party or not any political agenda. It's just I was done with this system kind of thing. So while I was doing that, initially, obviously, I was also part of the media that I consume, and I was part of this flock that just got uprose. Like there was no single driving entity. Like it's just we had enough. We were reacting, right, for the most part. While that was going on, that is when I started paying attention to the potentials of Sri Lanka. I started seeing a lot of younger figures popping up, and that's one of the like areas when I started paying proper attention to Randula's work as well. So I started seeing, okay, the platform she was using, and I started getting exposed to that. And funnily enough, during that time, my contract was also finishing with the company I was working with. So I was looking for a new employer, right? And so I spoke to some of Randula's friends as well, and then she basically asked, if you are interested, why don't you apply to be a project manager with GLX? So, and I was like, okay, cool. And I went through all of the stuff GLX was done. I was just completely blown away. And I don't know, it was so on time, on cue, because like inside me, I was like trying to find like especially the purpose, like the question, like the purpose for something. And I just wanted to look inside within the country, and I found GLX was doing some amazing work with some amazing people from this country itself. So that was like a no-brainer for me. I was like, yes, I'm gonna apply and see how this goes. And I was very nervous because this was, like I said, this was a completely new ball game for me. I haven't worked with any sort of like agricultural stuff, or like it's all digital, and like I haven't really had project management experience either. So this was like a completely new ball game for me. But that's another exciting thing. I generally love to, like sort of like not just dip my toe in like to check the water. I prefer to jump in and then find out. Luckily, so far every single time I jumped, I've managed to swim around, not just drown. So I actually applied, and I this actually outdid the expectations I had. I like the team and everyone. I was not exposed to this work environment at all because initially worked with a government entity, then a corporate entity, and anything beyond that was like either freelance stuff. So when I got into a company that like this is not like the CSR stuff like saying we are all family. I genuinely felt like this was a family. Uh, so like I've actually started reflecting on all of my priorities, and like I was like at one point, especially when it was closer to the wedding, I just completely ditched what like my well-being, and I was just like, okay, make the most you can, and like do whatever you can to like go to that. And like I've since I joined, I've been looking at life in a much more broader and a holistic way. I just realized there's more aspects to focus than just like the very minute stuff like money. So and like the just the satisfaction of seeing like the last programs that ended, seeing the ones I like the companies I worked like speak and like see how much they grew was one of the best feelings ever. And I think you guys have seen like I just my entire face hurt from smiling so I don't think I've completely figured out my purpose yet. Initially, like if I spoke to myself 5 years back or 10 years back, like I think forever, if you look at someone who's 30, we had like the impression, okay, they're 30, they should have their shit. Okay, oh. Sorry, Hari. So they have to have this stuff together, right? So I think right now when I'm still 29, but like I'm almost 30. I don't feel like like life is still that young and stuff. There's so much more to figure out. There's so much more to do, and I don't. The entire thing that makes you feel rushed, I just realized it was just if you start comparing yourself to everything around you and the folks around you. Obviously, it's good to draw inspirations from others, but the thing is, you have to know you when your life is your script. You go on your own pace. So I'm not that shy to say I'm still finding out my purpose, and I'm still finding out my purpose. But I know that comparing the past 2 years, I've made the most progress this year. I think I've grown a lot more, like wider. When it comes to figuring out stuff like what truly matters to me. So I guess in a way I sort of am growing, but it feels great. I don't feel like I'm missing out or I'm like way back behind or anything. So yeah, I guess that covers that topic for me. You wanna take it up?
So just to say something about like how you said about not having your purpose figured out, right? The thing is, most people seem like they have their purpose, like the outlook of the people. Like they're like, oh, okay, that person seems like he has his stuff together and all that. But in reality, that person is like just he's set in a mold, and the people who are not set in a mold, the outcasts, the misfits, like you and I, we are the people who seem to not have our purpose figured out yet. And that I think is the more natural, the more authentic way. I mean, no offense to anyone who isn't this way, but think about it. It's like they were told what to do, and they're doing that, and they're successful. That's right. But this is a different way. Yeah. So I can relate so much to what you said, like so much, right? Uh, Going back to my childhood, wow. I studied in Dubai. I was there for 10 years in total. Come back and on and off, but 10 years in total, and I studied there. So I mean, my entire schooling life, including Sri Lanka, I've always found like, something's off. Something's off. We're not meant to sit for like X number of hours in a classroom with a bloody desk in front, and someone come and tell you, do this way, think this way. No, that was so off to me. Like, was I ever going to be allowed to explore things my way? You know, and that I had that within me, and I don't know, I think that added to my rebellious nature. I was always like, no, I'm not gonna do that, I'm not gonna do this. So yeah, I was, you could say, a rebel. I think even now I am. It's just that I'm a little bit chill. Back then I was like hyper as a kid, though that combo can get a little hectic. So yeah, I wanted to like finish school as soon as possible and like get out of here. It was like an asylum, I just want to quickly get out of here. So I just did my O levels, and like even I was a smart kid, I would say, because whenever I put the effort, I would like ace it. Only thing is that system didn't sit right, and it wasn't appealing. So I didn't feel like putting the effort. But towards the end, when it came to like something like O levels, my mom was a bit like, you better get this, that, because you need this, but at least minimum, right? So I was like, fine, 3 months left for the exams. I just sat down, went for these extra classes, somehow managed to like get, C's and B's, and yeah, pass it. So mom was crying. She was crying. So like, oh, I'm so happy you got it done, and I was like, yeah, you. So after O levels, I like yeeted out of school, and I've always been fond of cooking, right? Cooking and health, wellness, movement. That was a whole package for me. I don't know. It all went hand in hand, and because we all know, right? Like being physically fit is, I mean, food is part of being physically fit, right? Mm. So initially, I wanted to become a chef, right? That was my dream, to become a chef. I still have that, like, but not the same. It wasn't the same image I had, as a kid. So as a kid, I enrolled in baking school. I wanted to do, hot kitchen, like, cookery stuff, but I was out of school when I was 16, and they were like, you're too young, you'll wait for 2 more years. My mom was like, okay, you have this other option. You can join, a baking school. They're accepting you even though you're 16. You can get in. So I was like, fine, I'll do that. And it was really interesting. I got to learn pastries, cakes, all kinds of fancy stuff, right? And yeah, I that was my basis to learning these fine techniques and whatnot. But to be honest, I didn't make much use of that, because I don't know, I just didn't it didn't work out for me, because right after that I was like that, yeah, 16 and a half. So after I was done with that, I was 18. So like 1.5 years later, right? And by the time I could work, 18 is the minimum. Ne? So my first job was in a hotel. It was a golf resort in Jebel Ali, in Dubai, in UAE, Jebel Ali, right? So I went there. I was all like super excited, and when I went work in the kitchen the first day, I was like, okay, this is not the same thing I had in mind, because in my head it was like, okay, now I'm going to become a pastry chef. Okay, is it that image of a French bakery and like some nice like old Europe, I don't know, so that kind of vibe going on, but that was just me in my head. Reality was that was not the situation. It was a fast-paced, hectic, X number of pastries, X number of breads, da 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 da, quick, this many, per day, and it was so hectic. And I was like, whoa, what have I signed up for? And then I managed to like stay there for 6 months. And by that time, I was like, I am out of here. And I just quit the place. I came back to Sri Lanka. And then so now, I mean, I wanted to become a chef, but this thing wasn't working out. I saw the reality of what the hotel, industry was. And I was like, okay, shoot, what do I do now? So I've always wanted to, like, meanwhile, before I wanted to become a chef, I forgot to mention that part. I've always wanted to, do something related to science. You also, you just didn't speak about that, right? Yeah, we can come to that. I've always been fond of animals. I've always been fond of nature. The thing was, I was a very lazy person when it comes to putting effort, because I want to chill, have things easy. Yeah, I am up for that. But if you put effort, it's like a little too much. So I'd prioritize having things easier, or like, chilling rather than putting effort. So when it comes to science, you put a lot of work into studying and all that. So even in school, I did not select science only because my brother told me the syllabus is, so long in comparison to doing commerce and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing science then. See, that was where I set the bar. Which I mean, I don't have any regrets, because even after school, I started self-learning science. So I think I would probably say I know more than what they would have taught me in school during that time. So I was always fond of nature and stuff like that. So after I came back, and now since my chef idea was like shattered, I was like, you know what? This system is crap. Okay, I'm not going to, partake in this system. I'm going to become a farmer and go to like a rural area and just, get out of this. So that also, I mean, thinking about it now, it was like a really like, I mean, a foolish thing to think of. I mean, not think of, to do if I executed that, because it was basically escaping, no? Escaping. Yeah, it was the phase. I was a young, 18-year-old. So that was basically escapism. Now I realize that. But back then it was like, for the longest time, I've always wanted things easy. So that was what I wanted to do, and I was like kind of fixated on it to a certain extent. I told my dad, and he was like, "What? You want to become a farmer? What are you going to do? I mean, farm vegetables and do what? You're not going to get like anything. You're not going to have a career." And the typical. I also get triggered by this stuff. When they're like, they expect me to be in this typical work, earn, house, marry. No, I'm out of that. I was always out of that. So that triggered me to a certain extent. And I was like, the rebel in me was like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I've always had that. But since I was still under their, what do you call it, care, I had to like, okay, agree to them. So then I started looking for jobs. I was like, fine, I'll just do a random job to make money, right? I worked, I did, oof, I did sales, I did marketing, I did this e-commerce management thing for a company. I was a fitness trainer for a while. Yeah, yeah. That was a different story. That was towards the end. I'll come to that. But before that, what else did I do? Oh, I was a mushroom cultivator also at one point. That was interesting. But the only thing is, it was very strenuous, very labor intensive, because you have to, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, mushroom cultivation in a commercial scale is kind of hard, because you have to go for like, let's say you're growing something like mostly consumed, the most common ones are like the abalone or American oyster, right? Oyster. So those are the easiest to grow, but they grow in like sawdust, and you put other stuff like magnesium sulfate to like give it a bit of a boost, and what is this, gram flour, anamanang, you put those stuff. So to do it in a commercial scale, you have to do like a huge lot, like 50 kilos. Mixing that, you'll take like a, like a shovel and mix that up, and it's labor intensive. So I did that for a while. Me and my mom and my brother, we got together. We did that for a while, and it just got too much. And me again, the wanting things easy. I was like, nah, screw this. But initially, like when we started doing it, it's not like it wasn't successful. It was successful. We did properly. The mushrooms. We fill them in bags, right? And the mycelium properly inoculated, and like it spread through. There was a white stack full of mycelium. There was a proper cake, right? And then like even the fruiting, so many times it started like fruiting, and there was we got a huge produce, a huge output. The only thing was continuing that strenuous labor. It was either me or my brother. Yeah, we had a separate. We built a separate shed at the back, and it was like proper, with nets, so insects couldn't go in. We had a proper setup. So continuing it was tough, and that also died down. Yeah, and after that, so I'm not going in order. These are the timeline's a bit jagged. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So after that, what else did I do? I actually worked again at a small restaurant for a bit. That was like a small kade, you know. I don't know. I was like still, I was so out of it in the sense of like, I'm done with the system, you know. Like I still was in the mindset of I'm going to live in some rural area and like try to like make a living by the day and, you know, get on with life because life seems so like, bleh, right? So I went and worked in a small kade, like where we did like these small sandwiches and I like made like a minimum wage a day, that kind of thing also. And that also didn't sustain for too long. And then came to the fitness training where I did like functional fitness for a gym in Colombo for a bit. And then, like same like you, I got this opportunity for Airways, right? But this only thing, it was not cabin crew; it was ground staff. And since I was like I didn't want to go. I clearly remember this. I was at the gym the day before the interview. You know, they had this interview in the hotel. There was this jet wing or something like Columbus 7, right? Same, yeah. So I was at the gym and I was working in the gym and I was on my way back. It was around 8 in the night and my brother was bugging me. He was like constantly telling me like, you should do this, you should go for the interview, you know, just go for it. Doesn't matter if you get it or not, just face it. So I was like, fine, whatever, just because he said so. I just, you know, the next day I put on like, your official clothes, a white shirt and all that, and made my way to the hotel. And I'm there and it's like, my God, around 1,500 applicants. I couldn't tell at that time. Only at the end of the day, it was an open day. It was an open day. I couldn't tell, you know, specifically, like approximately, I was just judging, it was around 500 people. But at the end of the day, I got to know it was 1,500 applicants. And I was apparently there for the second open day. I don't know if, yeah, is it, there are two open days, no? Yeah, the second open day. And the first open day had already finished and they had finalized a lot of people to carry on to the second day. Um, I went in, I walked in, and I handed over my CV, whatever, and all that process took. It took a short while for me, and they quit. Yeah, systematic, right? And I think they were happy with me, and they put me onto the second lot. The people who came with the first lot, like they finalized me, like then and there. I got like this red slip that said, you know, you're selected. I don't remember exactly what it said. Anyways, I was on. And by the end of the day, I was notified that I was selected, and I was like one of the 52 out of the 1,500 that got selected. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, wow. I came here with like, you know, no expectation of even being a part of this, and now I'm selected, right? Uh, and that was also so I'm someone who like I don't know. I've been reflecting all throughout my life. I've been reflecting on my patterns. Okay, and I realized, or like I've now by that time I've done like 8 different jobs. So every time I went to an interview, I get like super nervous and all that. This was the only time I went. I wasn't nervous. I was myself, and the reason being I wasn't like I didn't want it in the first place. So I realized, oh shoot, I can just be myself, no? And that was like a turning point for me when came to facing interviews because I was always a nervous person. Um, yeah, and then okay, and then a month later, after like all this process, medical, whatnot, and all that, I'm flying to for my job. And as soon as I went there, there's a bunch of Sri Lankans. We got like the people who got selected. We all went together, and yeah, it was like a mini Sri Lanka there for a while. Yeah, and then started working, and for 6 months I was like fully into it now because now I'm like, you know, I felt like okay, I'm doing something, you know, working with a crowd, like an international crowd, like I think 100 odd countries, no, like people for 40 something like, yeah, so it was an international workspace, right? And mingling with them was fun and interesting, learning their cultures and all that. And even it was a transit hub, right? 80% of the flights that came in there were transit, so you would see like people from almost the entire world. It was, and we had like an automated system going on, the automated check-in and all that. So it was really interesting. The first 6 months I was like super, you know, into it and all that. So working there again, like it got boring because it was a very routinal process, right? Moreover, I also found it very, the justice system over there. It was very, off. It wasn't, there was no justice. Let's say the boss was a person from this country, he'd favor his people. And yeah, I mean, that put me off because I was like, come on, that doesn't make any sense. How am I ever going to be, I'm being like genuinely honest. I'm putting so much effort and I'm trying to be like, I'm trying to do things the right way. But at the end of the day, it's pointless. That instantly put me off. And I was like, nah, I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to put any more effort. That was like from within me, that was my, what do you call it? My moral system, you could say. Yeah, so that was a total turn off, and after that I was like, okay, fine, what am I doing it for? Initially it was like the pleasure of helping people, getting them. It's upfront, right? It's upfront. You get to like give them, you help them in all ways possible to and even to like board their flight if they had like excess. Uh, I did this. It wasn't a ethical thing to do, but I can admit now that I'm not working in the airline. I would like allow them to carry like 5 kilos extra. Yeah. And especially, no. Especially that country, I mean, the Middle East in all, is they run on like labor, right? 15% at most of the locals are in that country, and the remaining, let's say 80-85% are in Europe. So they are like rich, they're rich, but they don't want to work. So what do? They hire these low class Asian, cheap labor. And poor guys, they get paid like so little, they work so hard and they go home once a year, maybe not even once a year. And that's them. Those are the people we're dealing with, right? And they're checking in, they have 40 kilos of luggage, and these guys, not even a proper luggage, they're like wrapped up bags. You've seen that, right? And man, so I felt so, I mean, obviously it's such a heartbreaking situation there. And so they would come to me and like they'd speak in, like, they wouldn't even speak English, so they'd speak Hindi. And naturally I learned to speak Hindi because I'm dealing with them, right? They'd come and they'd tell me like, oh no, now by the system, the airport system, you're supposed to say, okay, more than 40 kilos, 41, go repack and come back. So I tell these guys that by the line, and there's a mic that records us and all that stuff, right? And they're like, no, but I'm taking this for my child and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. You know what? It passes. Because I couldn't. I don't know if I was probably wrong, but I couldn't. As a human being, I looked in that person's eyes and I'm like, man, I understand. He may have even lied, but it doesn't matter, right? I understand the general background of a person like that. He was a laborer in the country. He was basically, his blood and sweat was what created the skyscrapers and the metro system and all of that. So yeah, I would do that. And like I told you, after my passion or all that died down, I would like intentionally be like, I still want to help people, but I wasn't passionate about working in an airline because it was all rigged. It didn't matter. So I worked there for 1 year. For the rest of the 6 months, I was like, I didn't give two rat's poop. Yeah. I would come to work. I would be like, you know what? Yeah, you? Yes, check in. You're 45 kilos? Yeah, sure. You know what? Take 5 more kilos in your hand luggage. You can go. Like 7 kilos for hand luggage. No, take. I'm sorry. Yeah, oh yeah. Ooh. Okay, I didn't think about you guys. I thought about the passengers. Okay. Oh, okay. So you guys had to take the hit for that, yeah? Yeah. So 6 more months there. Somehow I stayed there for a year, and I could have continued longer, but within me, there was this inner. Yeah, there's an inner voice within me being like, okay, you're earning money, you're here, but what are you doing? And like you, exactly like you, I would go home for the rest of the 6 months every day, turn on YouTube. I would watch these vlogs, travel with Chatura. Yes. Yeah. What else? All these guys,
goes sailor. I think Sailor Boy or something. It's a Sri Lankan sailor who comes and he travels around Sri Lanka. So I was watching him as well.
Right.
There's a bunch of vloggers.
So yeah, see, even there, right? That was me for the next 6 months, and I had a roommate from Kandy, and he was also like, we would get together and like, just like reminiscence the times we had in like Sri Lanka. We were homesick. We were homesick, right? And especially me, homesick not only because I was out of afar from home. I was not the kind of person to miss my family, to be honest, because I'm more like a lone wolf. I'm okay being myself. But what I missed the most was the country, the greenery, the mountains, the beaches, the waterfalls. The entire
So many minor details that you start missing.
right. And such a diverse country, and I was like, damn, I'm here in this concrete jungle. I was born somewhere else and I lived there, and I meant to be there. I always felt that way. Even like being in Dubai for 10 years, right? I always felt off. Always felt off. And my father is still there and he's like, don't you want to come for holidays? I'm like, no way.
Especially if you consider a place like Dubai, what are the prospects they have? Like land prospects they have. Absolutely, we have almost every bloody thing.
Yeah. We have everything. I think we are a gold mine. So that got me thinking, like, what am I doing? I'm earning good buck, but am I satisfied? Am I satisfied? Am I doing anything with I'm a native. I mean, I'm a native of this country. All this land is part of me, right? Like, I can make use of it. So, am I doing the best I can with my life? Yeah, and that was a strong no from within. So 1 year on the dot. I stayed for 1 year only because my brother was like, stay for 1 year, get that, what do you call it? The certificate that you completed for 1 year. Leaving certificate? I don't know, what is it called? Whatever, just a bit, yes, service letter, right? That certifies that you worked for somewhere for a year, because it was like, it'll help you in your career and all that. So likewise, like you, again, I I never thought of career. I never thought of career. Even up to date, I don't think of career, and I'm comfortable that way. I can't think in this system, this box of, okay, what am I going to be in 5 years? What am I? I can't. That's just who I am.
Narrowing down the scope way too much.
It does. It does. It just limits me. I I would just like to live by the day, and so there was also like the downfall of that me. I was on an extreme of living by the day, right? I would be like, I want to live by the day and I wouldn't think about tomorrow. So that included not even wanting a stable job.
Yeah.
So lately I've come to realize, oh no, lately in the sense the past 2 years, I've got into this whole transformational, what do you call it? It's more like a reflective sense of reflection. It's a practice of reflection. For the past 2 years, I've been reflecting on how I think, things I do, and what is my intention behind all of this. Yeah, starting from that, ever since I started going down that path, I've been questioning a lot of my habits, a lot of my ways. I was too much of a, I don't know, what do you call it? A gypsy, you could say, a gypsy running from place to place, jumping here and there, and like, taking things too easy. So that was around that time, like, later on, like, let's say a year ago, around that time was when I was like looking for something stable and purpose. I still didn't have a purpose. Even now, like, my purpose goes along the line with the line of helping people. I really want to help people. That is, I know that's there for sure. Like, no matter what. But in terms of career or work, I'm still figuring that out. I know it's going to be something to do with health, food, that kind of scene. Yeah, and I'm anyways passionate about that now. Yeah, so around that time, that transformational time, which was a year ago properly, where I was like looking into the fact that my ways are not the right way. I have to find something stable. Is where I stumbled across Good Life X through Vihan Gun. Yeah, he was a good friend of mine before even working here with him. And he was like, you know what, I think this and you will go hand in hand. with the whole, my background of wanting to be, with health, wellness and all. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. And when I joined here, I was still under that, now working in 10 different places, that mindset you have, it's another job. Yes. It's another job. So I have to be, there's almost that sense of discomfort where you're like, okay, I'm working again for another organization. Those same old patterns seeped in here. But the more I started working here, I realized, oh my God, this is not that typical, workplace.
You know where you feel that the most? I think Sunday night, when it's Monday tomorrow. If you feel like it's not a burden, I have to wake up. I obviously, when I first started, still, like you said, the job, it's another job. Mondays were horrendous for me as well. But like the more I worked, I'm like, okay, Monday, yeah. Looking forward for it. That was a big thing that gave me like verification, because I felt like, okay, I'm at the right place, doing the right stuff.
That was a good giveaway, that you were in the right place. And yeah, so as I started like working here, I was like, the entire system was like, I was like, is this even real? I'm so used to that exposure. When I started working here, the people, the culture, the whole, what is the terminology we give? The circular, not the hierarchy where we don't have a top-down thing going on. That is so liberating, because I don't have to be like, I had work trauma, to be honest. I had work trauma. I was like, okay, shoot, I'm not feeling well today. Am I initially? Yeah, I was. That was how traumatized I was. Do I have the liberation to actually, voice myself out and say, okay, I can't come to work today. So I would like approach, let's say Randula or Vihangu, and be like, is it okay if I don't come to work? They're like, what? Yeah, you can't work. You stay at home. And I was like, okay, wow. That kind of, they kind of valued me. I felt being valued, and I was like, wow, okay, that made me want to work more. And alongside, even Road to Region, right? Like when yesterday we had this onboarding program, seeing those people come together and like what they do and being a part of that, being able to help them, man, so much satisfaction. Waking up in the morning, I have never been the person to want to work. Okay, I've always been the person, like I told you earlier, I was mentioned earlier, like I wanted things very easy. I want to chill all the time. And now, in comparison to that person, let's say 6 months ago, now I'm the total opposite. I wake up in the morning, I open my laptop, I'm like, what's today? What's for today? What do you have to do? Okay, let's check in with this, company or whatever. I can't believe I'm doing that. And it's so satisfactory, Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, let's just take a look at what this shit says. Yeah, all right. So, interesting shit. Do you have any stories to share from cabin crew, being in the cabin crew, or any other jobs? Any noticeable, uh, you know, worthy things to mention? Yeah, which one to say, ne? About me. I can't, I can't just off the bat, can't think of anything like that. But, yeah, to keep, I don't know, I would just say, maybe we could, no, some things maybe I shouldn't mention. I don't know. There's certain things that I don't want to even talk about, and not even relevant, and also, a bit, you can't even speak about the stuff. So, um, so yeah, going back to again here, work over here. I think I wanted to mention the fact that I think not only has it allowed me to help people, it also helped myself grow as an individual. For instance, even talking in this podcast, I was someone who can't even like speak in front of a camera or in front of some. I was so nervous. I was so self-conscious. So that I think working with Good Life X gave me that opportunity to be upfront and like be myself. Right? I didn't have to like put on this facade of being, you know, professional or whatever it is you want to label. And yeah, like I'm just so comfortable now, like speaking out. Obviously, that tingling nervousness is there, but I'm able to identify that because alongside with my self-reflection, this came hand in hand, right? Being able to like, I was provided this platform to experiment with myself. Even when there were times where I would like initially speak up when I joined it, I was like try to like speak about stuff and I'd stutter, I'd be nervous, and I was accepted for that. I was accepted for that. So I think, yeah, that to add to the work culture, you know, that's something amazing to be able to grow as a person alongside helping other people. I mean, as an individual, it's not just you working and getting work done, it's work for yourself as well. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Do you have anything to add about the work culture over here that helped you?
The most impressive thing for me as well, like you as well, it's just how accepting everything was and how amazingly like minds like attract to this. This is like GLX has low key been like a conduit. Like any sort of like the folks you meet, there's such a degree of chemistry. I don't know what's the foundation of that. Even when we run a program, we get like, you know, there's so many interested whoever has come through, there's so much of a sync, like you said, from the experts to everyone. So none of them. So even though there's like a system, like there's a standard operating procedure and all of that, when we even go through a program, it's not just about deliverables. Everybody goes out of their way, and like, you know, that's what it makes, like, you know, like I just to like the last demo day, I saw all of the experts who were working with the companies looking at the pictures. Everybody looked like a proud parent, and it was just like so good. I- it's amazing work. Like, to be honest, like throughout my career, this has been the most, like, you know, gratifying and, like, you know, gratifying and satisfying stuff I've done it. And like a massive pool of like knowledge I've been gaining so much from the experts, especially like I do meet like experts who I've, like, you know, relevant field like social media and digital marketing. I would pay good money to get the exposure I get from, like, you know, just like, you know, working alongside and coordinating stuff. They are such a wealth of knowledge, and they don't just, like, you know, keep their knowledge to themselves. They're more than happy to, like, you know, you're interested, okay, let me, you know, tell you this. It's been amazing. That has been like the highlight throughout, like, since I joined GLX, to be honest.
So basically, it's a hub that attracts
Exactly.
that kind of, you know, giving vibe.
Yeah. So the Insta handle is on point, GLX Hub. Oh, by the way, I have another question for you. How did your interview process go? 'Cause for me, uh, so nobody told me there won't be any food. I expected there to be food because it's at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I went already. Didn't eat from home. I expected there to be food, and I went there. And the initial, they give you a brief, right? And then did you get like a English comprehension test kind of thing? Yeah. So while that was going, there was like dead silent inside the room, and my stomach just kept growling. And it was the most embarrassing thing was the moment I stepped out of the examination room, there was a bunch of, like, you know, other applicants coming up to me and giving me food.
Something I just want to say also, like about stuff like that, right? Like, I don't know. I don't think we should be like. I'm just nitpicking the words you used. Embarrassing. I don't think so. No, I think it's just a norm. No, it's a norm. We are hungry, and that's the thing. So that's a part of the societal norm. You know, the idea you can't. I don't know. Everything is nitpicked. Everything is like, you know, tried to be perfect or. Uh,
Going worse, to be honest. Like,
it is. It is. I mean, do we have to even name all the? I don't even want to get into it, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Okay, let's see what this says. It's cursive. I'm finding it hard to read. Okay. Did your past experience put you at an advantage or disadvantage in your current setting? Did my past experience? I think my past experience shaped who I am today. If I didn't have those tough times, if I didn't have those experiences to tell me, okay, this is wrong, I wouldn't know what was right for me. That contrast was needed, and especially working in a place like Airways. That's like the top. Like if you take an organization, as that's like one of the biggest places, biggest exposures, right? Going there and seeing that system was also crap. I mean, once you experience crazy extractive, right? Once you're exposed to that and okay, even the biggest of the biggest corporations have a very broken system. You just you've experienced a lot, no? And then you're like, okay, fine. I mean, if I didn't experience that, I would still probably somewhere down the line I would be like, okay, maybe I want to work for a big corporation. But that experience, uh, that exposure, I mean, that told me everything I needed to know about a big corporation. They're not even like, I mean, apart from it being a big corporation, the entire setting of it was wrong, extractive. But the bigger the corporation is, they can't pay attention to their employees, all of that. And yeah, so personally speaking, I mean, me being a gypsy, I think even that taking that experience, I needed to jump from place to place in order to know, okay, this jumping doesn't work. You know, I need to settle down. And of course, it took me some time. It took me 11 years. I'm 27 now, and ever since I was out of school, so let's say 16, I was always jumping around and like trying to find this perfect, peaceful, match. It should match me. Things should come easy, kind of thing. It's nonsense. No? So reality of the world is not such. Reality is you work for something, you get it. That's the truth of it. That's it. So yeah, yeah. I think. Where I am now is a beautiful space. I very much appreciate all those experiences I've had, and yes. Would you like to?
Yeah, for me also, I like just like you. I don't think if I did not have those experience, I'd appreciate what is offered right now. I would not like the perspective of me would like it's actually now like I'm like I've seen where it can lead to, and I've seen how like we said, extractive, how it impacts. I've seen like especially during COVID, in, like it's not just the airways that's been extractive. It's just how I've seen so many third world countries, laborers during COVID, they just had no support structure, and not even the embassies were representing them. They were literally out on the streets during their summer, which was horrible. Like they couldn't and that's not how like a human life should be valued at, and like seeing all of that, and like seeing like even especially from a country like Sri Lanka, which is like since the colonialization, it has been everything that has came through Sri Lanka has been extractive so far, right? Right now, we've actually started looking like we started seeing, okay, what is regenerative, what we can do, how can we not be extractive, and now we're looking in. I'm glad like us being a hub for that. So all of those, like if I just said like come here for the sake of just being just another job kind of thing, like I'd totally, if I started this job without having those previous experience, this would just be another job. I would not be valuing every single aspect like this, like, the GLX itself is offering. So I'm so glad I've had those experiences. I've like we've spoke before, I don't regret anything. Like even the past made like like that meme. It is what it is. That's how I go throughout my life as well. So yeah, I'd cherish my previous experiences and how it fits so nicely. And like the biggest thing, more than my career, that actually made me see the values of what GLX is offering is during the whole protest season. Like because I was very reactive as well back then. Like it was just okay, again revolution, viva la revolution, all like, and then I saw like, okay, there are other ways we can revolt, right? There's like, you can like have like a much more systematic revolution that goes sweeps across, like we can like, passes in a practical way that'll like that'll low key what do you call mold the next generation, not molding as in like like constricting them. You this way too, yeah. So they're like the general. The biggest thing I want to break in Sri Lanka is to like you have to get out of the country to do something. You can do so much within the country itself. So yeah, that's it. No, yeah, that's about it for me. Yeah, how about we? Mm, no, I think we covered.
I just want to say for the people watching, I mean, as you heard us share about our experiences, I think you should also, if you've not figured out your stuff, I don't think it's something you have to worry about, because we all don't have to like fit in the system, no? You don't. It's not a linear timeline. I mean, to be honest, this is my first actual job. I was actually present, yeah, although I worked in other places. I wasn't present. I was just aloof, just trying to get by. Autopilot. But so yeah, if you're still in the phase of figuring stuff out, and maybe you think you're in your late 20s or in your 30s, and you have to have your stuff together, that's just you looking at society and saying that okay, other people are doing well, and they're in this age, they have these things. I should also be doing. That's your mind telling you that. I don't think you have to necessarily fall trap for that. So just notice that, and yeah, keep doing you. Yeah. Thank you.